in hindsight, I wish I would have never grown. I should have put all that money and that time and that resource in bumping our current stores up, improving the facilities, improving the processes, making sure we have everything dialed in more. Instead of going and chasing revenue, I should have built the revenue. That is 100% my mistake. I wish that I would have, had more experience. I don't know what I can blame it on besides myself, and I just didn't know what I was doing. But right now I'm confident that I can make my stores here in Utah back up to $100 million.
How quickly can you grow a $100 million company? And how long does it take for that to collapse? This episode is one of the more vulnerable episodes that I think I've had the opportunity to be a part of. Jason Haugen bought an RV brand, an RV company, and in 2 years blew it up to 100 million incredibly quickly. He did have the tailwinds of COVID behind his back, tremendous lessons to that process, and then watched a tremendous amount of it erode. He digs into the nuances of the mistakes he made, what he would have done better, and what he did that really worked. Some of the major takeaways here are how you can grow too quickly and what to do to avoid it, how to deliberately hire and curate the right people and culture, and how you can apply the lessons from network marketing to grow your own business, even if it has nothing to do with network marketing. Loved this conversation. Like I said, pretty wide ranging from an emotional perspective. Got a lot of wins and a lot of losses, and the curtain gets pulled back. Jason Haugen, I appreciate you carving out time, man. I love your backdrop.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. I was looking at some video of your studio before we jumped on, and I feel like you've got the same backdrop, but a couple different colors, like your guest gets a different color or something.
Yeah. So we've kind of been doing this yellow for a while. But I used to have it kind of where if the guest had a certain color brand, like these lights have like 360 different colors, and then they have like 500 different hues you could do. Like you can do anything you want to. So I used to just let the guests just decide, but we've kind of decided like yellow is kind of my brand, so we're keeping it on brand.
I dig it. I'm always curious about studio setups. I mean, it's I have fun with it. I have fun. Or I'm in my office right now at the Easy Peter Rect office, but we've got a studio that's a different vibe, different setup, and I'm kind of always playing with it, thinking about options.
I love it. Yeah, no, I have a good time. We change it up. So we have like different. I've never really done seasons, but we do random different change ups or different style. Or like I used to have a table where we'd sit across the table. Now it's more of a side by side, like chair interview style. And so I'm sure one day we'll change it up again.
Dig it. Well, let's dive into stuff, man. So we met somewhat randomly a few months ago at actually an internet marketing party, one of the big internet marketing party events. And David Gonzalez said, you have to talk to Jason. And so we found ourselves in a quick conversation before you flew out, I think that night. And you've got an interesting story. I want to talk about this, RV group empire that you've been building, which is now a 9-figure company. But I want to start at the beginning because I've dug in a little bit. Can you give me some backdrop on the beginning of business for you?
Yeah. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial household. My mom and dad owned about 40 different businesses growing up. They've done billions and billions and billions in business and just done very, very well for themselves. But they always taught us their money's their money, our money's our money. They were wealthy, we were not. They were really hard on us. So it's I don't know. People don't really believe that, but they were actually really hard on us. But growing up, I always wanted to do what mom and dad did. They were really large in network marketing. And so they had one of the largest groups back in the day in the world in their group or in the industry. And so I always wanted to do what they did. So when I turned 18 years old, I joined network marketing company. And so that was a great time. Very quickly rose to the top, was the top earner in the company. I'm a natural, kind of talker, sales guy, really good with people, and just had a really, really good time in that company and learned a lot very, very young. I mean, speaking on the stage with very successful individuals, kind of touring around the country, speaking at different conferences and different things like that. And it was just a blast. Like I had such a good time doing the network marketing thing. I learned a lot about business through that, a lot of self-development, a lot of, how to operate and, network marketing is very different, but I had, thousands and thousands and thousands of people that I was dealing with. And so you got to like really, really learn how to deal with people, which I think is the kind of the secret sauce to business. And so,
Well, let me pause you on that, because network marketing is one of the industries that some people don't understand at all. Some people have a terrible taste in their mouth. Some people are high performers, high earners, and it's sticky for that reason. And I grew up in direct sales, which is tangential to network marketing, right? Direct marketing companies and direct sales companies and MLMs are similar, but the differentiator being, in an MLM, you're generating revenue from the group, from the override of other people you bring in, as opposed to just generating revenue from the product. And the differentiation legally that people look for is how much, in the government and particularly, how much of the revenue comes from product versus the overrides in the group. And I want to be super clear, like I have lots of friends that have crushed in network marketing, both as distributors and also as owning network marketing companies. There is no question that the efficacy of the model is super strong. What product did you get into? What company did you get into? What were your parents doing? Because I think that context is helpful for people to kind of get a grip on what it means and how you rose.
So my mom and dad were in Amway, just like
like original.
Yep, the OGs. I mean, they were the largest distributors in Amway between the late '80s, '90s, and early 2000s. They had business in 32 countries. I think it's 32 countries. They still hold the largest, the record for the largest business meeting at the Georgia Dome, 97,000 people. Their small events were 20,000 people.
Damn.
I remember them selling. They were the arena people. They were going to these big basketball arenas. I've seen them do the Anaheim Stadium where the Angels play in California, sell out that and that was small. Like that wasn't really that hard to do. Their hardest thing was making it small. Where there wasn't so many people coming to them because, back and they did all this with no cell phones, no internet, it was insane. And
on top of that, Amway, you were housing the product, right? So now most network marketing companies, you're not housing the product gets drop shipped for you. But Amway being the original network marketing company, you actually bought the product and resold it, right? Or at least you warehoused it yourself.
Yeah, you warehoused it. And the crazy thing about it, so they called them directs. So a direct was a rank about 25,000 points. And when you became a direct, you were direct to the company. So everybody below you had to come do a product pickup from you, no matter where they were. So people would drive 3, 4, 5 hours to you to pick up your product or their product, and then they would go home. It also created some issues because they would pay their people. They were supposed to calculate commissions, and they were paying all that. So it was a disaster.
Yeah, it sounds like a nightmare, dude.
Yeah. So a lot of lawsuits flying around and different things, but it was a big learning experience for my mom and dad. I got to know everybody in the industry. I got to, hang out and go to the DeVosses and the Van Andels home who owned Amway. They own the Orlando Magic currently and a bunch of other stuff. Got to spend a lot of time with them. I got to meet a bunch of people people toured around with my mom and dad, like George Foreman would be on it. We had a big tour bus, my mom and dad did, and George Foreman was chilling on the bus with us, like Johnny Cash and him, like a few presidents, been in the White House, like Robert Kiyosaki, like Jim Rohn, this was just normal. This was just a normal Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday event that you'd go to, and there'd be a bunch of people. And I have a twin and then I have an older brother and older sister, and we really didn't care about any of that because we were just trying to have a good time, and it was a vacation to us. But I wish I would have been a little bit older and really seen and appreciated what they did. I was born in 1993, and they have already gone diamond. They were already crushing it. Like they were already doing all these things. And, I didn't really get to see my dad back in his prime or my mom back in her prime. My mom was right there with them, speaking and presenting the opportunity, showing the plan, going to the living rooms, grinding it out. And that was really, really cool to see as a kid growing up, seeing both of them grind together. Everything that they did was a hustle together. So I appreciated that. And then I got into a company called Avase, which never really grew too big. It was more of just sports supplements. Like they had like a pain, like a joint thing, a weight loss, overall multivitamin, a protein, and like a little sports drink. It never really exploded. Like I think I was the biggest, biggest person. But it had changed a lot since my mom and dad were in, network marketing, and they didn't really help us. What was that?
The industry changed.
Yeah, the industry changed a lot. With a lot of the like the rulings with the FTC and everything going, it was more customer oriented. Back in Amway, it was like, what is a customer? Like they didn't even really have that, right? It was all IBOs, or what they used to call them, like independent business owners, all distributors, like all that. And the industry, has transformed, over the course of the last probably 15 years. And it just wasn't what I grew up knowing. It just wasn't, I don't know. I had a really hard time doing it. I had a lot of success, but I had a hard time doing like these parties, and like, it just wasn't my vibe. Like I was kind of beating my head against the wall, and our company got sold. And so that was a kind of opportunity for me to reset a little bit, figure out what I wanted to do. The new company coming in, there was kind of a mixture of 3 different companies. And so I stayed with them for a year, and kind of in that transition period, I got introduced to the RV industry. My dad came to me to a deal. I was like, hey, I don't really want to do this, but I got approached by these guys that are going to sell their dealership. He had known them previously because he bought an RV from him. So he's like, hey, they're going to sell this dealership, and do you want to buy it? Like, we're trying to figure out, because we know that we're probably not going to be in network marketing very long. And my dad knows that. And he's like, hey, let's figure out something that the family can do and keep this thing going. Because he had sold all of his businesses and a ton of real estate and a ton of stuff, and just was trying to retire for once in his life. And so got introduced to that late 2017, ended up purchasing in 2018. And at the end of 2017 is when our company got sold. And so it was very like weird transition period. So I got in the RV business the same year our business got sold. And I tried to do both of them at tandem. I tried to do the RV industry and never told a single soul about the RV industry and network marketing. Like kept them separate. I never posted about the RV company on Instagram. Never, no one had no idea, like zero clue that we had the RV dealerships, because I didn't want that out there. Because once you're in network marketing, you're in network marketing. You can't do anything else. It's bad. And so we did that in tandem for about a year and a half. And
why is it bad?
What was that?
Why is it bad? Is it because, I can hypothesize, but why is it bad? Once you're in network marketing, you want to put the...
It's just like, it's one of those things that you always talk about of like, it's kind of funny because I was on a podcast the other day about this. It's like, they always sell it as a side hustle to make an extra $500 a month. But once you join and then you decide not to go all in every event, quit your job, like all these different things, it's like looked at as you're not a leader. You don't want this bad enough, or different things. Like, and I had a very big group. I didn't want them to start doubting and lose faith in the industry or the company. I'm out there trying to speak, I'm speaking and still doing all these hotel meetings and still doing all these other, like home meetings. Like I'm trying to just spin those plates fast as I can. While in my daytime, I'm doing the dealerships, but nobody knows that. But I don't want them to lose that faith and to think, oh, Jason's doing something else, then we probably should look for something else, because that's not what you want. A group of thousands of people going, oh, well, he doesn't really believe in it. He's doing other things. Then, we should do other things. I watched my mom and dad do it. Like my mom and dad owned 40 businesses and no one ever knew. But obviously my dad kind of saw it from a higher level and was like, I have to diversify because I don't really know what's going to happen. A lot of times in network marketing, we think it's free. We think all these but at the end of the day, a company controls everything and can terminate you. My mom and dad got terminated from Amway for really no reason. Like just woke up one day and got terminated. So like they can do anything they want to. So luckily my dad had a bunch of other things going on and it really didn't affect him.
What was the rationale for that?
So back in 2007, one of the board members of the IBOAI board, which is the Independent Business Owners Association of Amway. So you have the field and you have corporate. The field had a board, and their bylaws in Amway that if a board member or any individual in Amway sued the company, an automatic termination. A board member put everybody on the board's name on a lawsuit and sued the company, and my mom and dad got automatically terminated. And then they ended up getting reinstated, and then my dad resigned and mom resigned. So actually, that resignation letter is still online. You can Google it. It actually made national headlines at the moment my mom and dad resigned. It was pretty crazy. So, yeah, I mean, so they kind of had that control, and so we're doing the dealerships and the network marketing and kind of in tandem. Then they got sold again, and then finally at the end of 2019, I was like, hey, I'm this new company coming in. They flew me out to San Diego, got to meet the owners and the board, and got to walk through the corporate office and all that stuff. And I remember calling my then girlfriend at the time. Now she's not my wife, and saying, "Hey, I'm done with this network marketing thing. I'm going all in on the RV industry, and I'm burning the bridges." I didn't even sign back up. I had thousands and tens of thousands of dollars in commissions sitting in my account, and I'm like, I don't even want my login. You guys have it. I'm done. I'm going over here. I'm burning the bridges. Like, I can't keep having these two separate lives anymore. I'm going all in on the RV industry. And that was the best decision, best thing that ever happened to me, because a couple months later, COVID hit, which was the best time in the RV history of the world. So everything kind of happened perfect timing wise.
You grew up heavily exposed to network marketing, and it was like, this was the way, this was the thing that made sense.
Yep.
So easy transition into it when you're 18. Immediate success. The industry, I think the industry is an interesting case study in general, and I'll bring this back when we get into your current business, but kind of how it works, what worked originally versus what works today, why it works, the dynamics that are at play there. Those are all good lessons to apply to most businesses. But you get into another industry or get into another company. It sells a number of times. Through this, your family buys an RV company. What's the size of the RV brand at that point in time when you guys buy it, and kind of what's the structure? Like, what role do you play? What role does the rest of the family play?
So we ended up buying a store that we had no idea what the financials looked one way, but we got in there and it was so backwards that it was bad. I mean, we could have actually, had some big issues with them because they had no idea what their financials were, and it was way more upside down than what it seemed like. But the store was doing about 12 million in sales per year. That year in 2018, we did like 12.8 million in sales, which is, not bad. You can still make $1 million a year at that. They were definitely not. But it's, there's a lot that goes into it. I think we had about 22 employees. And so my dad invested and was like, hey, like, this is going to be your thing. I'm just going to help, because we went to buy it and really didn't realize how hard it was to purchase an RV dealership because of what they call flooring. That is how you buy all the inventory. It's a flooring line. So it's like a credit line. Well, I didn't know how hard that was. And so we went, young, dumb, and naive, kind of went and bought this. And then the bank was like, whoa, blocked everything. And we had to have basically a 1-for-1 in assets for our flooring line, which is about $3.5 million at the time. And so they had to have like a vetting process and all this stuff, because generally RV dealership owners come from the industry. And so the banks are familiar with them, whether they were a general manager or somebody in the RV industry. Well, we came from out of nowhere, thin air, bought the dealership, never even told the flooring company because we didn't even know what that meant. And all of a sudden we're operating, and then, we got shut down for a little bit. So I had to have, that financial backing through my dad. And then, it was only supposed to be a very short period of time. And then we were going to make a transition period and all that good stuff. Well, I decided to buy more stores, which we'll get into a little bit. But my dad was like, hey, for me to do this with you and to finance this and do all this stuff, like, you're going to have to work here. And I'm like, no, I'll work here every day. It was 70 miles from my house. And so I'm like, that's no problem. In the worst part of Salt Lake City, just, sometimes it take me 2.5, 3 hours to get there. And then he got the same commute back. But he's like, you got to work there every single day, all day. Like, it's a grind from, 9 in the morning till 7 at night. And I'm like, all right, whatever, dude, I'll do it. But he's like, you're going to have to sell. And I'm like, excuse me? And so I became a salesperson at the store, and did that from basically January until June. And July 1st of 2018, I just became the operations manager, which more of was like the big picture scope of looking at everything, making everything run a little bit better, and learning the operations of the dealership, learning sales, learning finance, learning parts, service, used inventory, new inventory, how to manage the inventory. Like there's so much that goes into an RV dealership, which we didn't know. In 2018, Harvard Business published an article that states the RV dealership model business is the hardest in 2018, is the hardest business to run. So, and that's from Harvard Business. If I would have read that article, I would have never done it. But
what makes it difficult? What are the elements that you think makes that model in particular difficult?
So you have basically 5 different businesses under one roof. You have new inventory, used inventory, finance, parts, and service, and they all have their own P&L. They all pay allocated expenses. Plus, we're about 15 to 20 years behind the automotive industry. To order parts, you take a picture of it, you email it to someone in Indiana, and then they might send it to you 2 or 3 times to try to figure out which part you're asking for. In the RV industry, nothing is attributed to a VIN number. You go to your local car place in the Ford store, right? You're some bolt in your seat breaks. You go give them your VIN number, and they click on the seat, and it blows up, and it has every single individual part in that seat, and you just pick, hey, it's that one, and they order it, right? There is nothing attributed to a VIN number in the RV industry. At least for trailers, but generally even motorhomes, it doesn't mean anything. Like they literally will go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware and buy piping and buy breakers and buy bolts. And that's how they build these things, is all by hand. And so that makes it extremely complicated. Plus in the RV industry, there's no such thing as free flooring. In the car industry, they have like volume incentives by the manufacturers, and they have what they call free flooring, and the car manufacturers just basically give them the cars for free for a certain amount of time. RV industry, day one that baby rolls off the lot, even if it stays in a shipping yard in Indiana, I'm paying interest every single minute of every single day until I sell it. And so it could sit there for a very long time accumulating interest. So it's very complicated. I mean, you're doing a logistics company trying to get all these, like in the car industry, I've kind of heard that it's a lot, done by the manufacturers. Here, it's like the Wild West. The manufacturers don't want to do anything for you. And so it's a complicated business, but I think it's a fun business. I mean, we've done some really cool things to try to make it a little new agey, and, me coming in and I don't know what I know. I'm trying to, systemize and process. And then, what I do a lot of culture coaching and culture stuff. So like we've implemented a lot of that stuff, which has helped us tremendously. But it's still the RV industry, and you still have those battles to be able to go through. So it's been kind of nuts, but it all started with me being a salesperson, and then I became the operations manager, and I did that for a year and a half, and then we bought more stores and made myself the CEO, and bought 5 more stores in 21, and kind of just go. I mean, we're just growing like crazy. We went from 12 million in sales to 13 to 65 to 103, and then 103 to 111.
So let's talk about that. So let's talk about where you were in that process and what that jump was. So 12 to 13 to 65 is a big jump. Was that through acquisition?
Yep, that was through acquisition. It was through 2 stores of an acquisition. And we took those stores. So previous year they did 20 million, and the year that we took them over, we did 50.
And what was the acquisition like? How did you go about finding them, and what were the terms of the acquisition roughly?
So we found it just through actually word of mouth. The owner actually called us and was like, hey, I heard you're looking for some stores to buy, because there was a little store that we were looking to buy. And this was 2 of the largest dealerships in the state. And we were like, we never even thought that I was on the radar, but the guy was dying to get out. And so we ended up buying those stores. We financed we did upfront cash, probably 70% of it, and the guy financed the 30%. And those stores very profitable, doing very, very well. It was kind of crazy. We bought those February 1st, 2020, and as you know, COVID hit in the middle of March 2020, and that was the craziest experience of my life, because we had just spent $6 million on these dealerships, and we're like, holy crap, what did we just do? And
so how are those valued then? You said you spent $6 million, which was 70% of the purchase price. So you're looking at a $9 million purchase price for something that's generating $20 million a year.
So Our cash was 4 million and we financed the 2 million.
Got it.
Or I guess it'd be 20. I don't know, whatever the math that ends up being the percentage. But
Yep.
generally it's about 2 to 3 times earnings. We looked at it like it was almost a one-time earning because of how much the guy, low-hanging fruit and the guy was leaving on the table, which every dealership we bought, we've made our money back in 1 year. So
wow.
Yeah. It's been very, very, good. And we have some processes that we implement, but we've never not made our money back in 1 year. We're basically, besides the first store, but every other acquisition we made since then, which is 8 more stores, we've always made our money back the first year. So it's been good. But that 2020, I mean, a lot of it was predicated on because of COVID. It probably isn't normal, but that's just my experience.
Got it.
The RV industry just took off and accelerated at a crazy speed.
What did you see in that particular store that, and maybe it's nothing, but what did you see in that particular store that made you feel like he was leaving something on the table, that made you feel like, hey, there's space for us to grow this?
Finance. So in the RV industry, so when you go like purchase a vehicle and you get the service contracts, or some states are called warranties, you're getting the gap insurance, like all those different things. So that's all what we call finance, right? In the automotive industry, that is the only profitable part of a car sale, generally. On the front end, they call it the front end. So there's the front end on the gross profit of the vehicle. There's the back end on the financing part. So the front and back. There's generally in the car industry, there's not a lot of front, handful of dollars, like $500, $1,000, but all the money is in the financing. The RV industry is the complete opposite. All the money is made on the front, and nobody ever cares about the back. We have dialed in our process. The average percent of sales in the RV industry is around 3% of sales. So if you do $100,000 rig, the financing department is going to make about $3,000. In our company, our average is 11%. And so, if we see all that money in sales, I'm thinking an 8% increase in gross profit. It's a massive amount, especially if you're selling 20, 30, 40, 50 million in units, and you can add another 8% on your bottom line. That's a pretty big deal. And so when we look at those numbers, we see a lot of low-hanging fruit in different areas like that. And there's different things like parts margin and service efficiency, which their service efficiency was horrible. And different things like that. So that's where we see the low-hanging fruit. So if someone wants like $6 million for a store, they, their net or their EBITDA, which we don't really do EBITDA in the RV industry, but their net profit is, 2 million, and they want 6. Okay, that's a 3 times earning to the person. But then we think that we can, just by one simple process and the same amount of revenue, the same amount of everything stays the same, we can make 3.5 or 4. Then okay, that's like a 1.5 times earnings to us, which that year we ended up making more than that. So that's how we kind of look at those different calculations of when we go purchase stores, and we break it down. I mean, I can break down a financial in probably 20 minutes of what we think we can do with the store or not, and if it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense. And these stores, not only do they have a lot of low-hanging fruit in the financials, they had really, really good lines in the RV industry, which are worth a lot of money in itself. So it was very strategic to add certain lines, because in Utah, you have to be 35 miles away as the crow flies from the same brand. Not necessarily a dealership, but the same brand. They have to be 35 miles away. And
For RVs?
Yeah, so only RVs in the state of Utah.
That seems rather arbitrary and strange.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps everybody competitive. Where there's not there's a Ford store in every corner in some places, but it keeps you kind of competitive because the market's not that big. I mean, it is that big, but it's not that big, so it kind of keeps us competitive. And so everybody in Salt Lake City, basically they call them BTAs, or basic trade areas. That BTA is taken up by all these big guys like Camping World and General RV and all that stuff. So every brand is already taken in Salt Lake City. So my Salt Lake City store doesn't really have like a lot of brands, or even maybe the best brands. But those 2 stores where they were 100 miles south and 100 miles north of Salt Lake. They had anything you wanted to dream of. I mean, and they can still have anything you want to dream of.
Got it. So when you're talking about brands, you're talking about the brand of the RV, not the brand of the dealership.
Yeah, brand of the RV. So and there's no Camping World starting a new model, but there's no like brand specific stores in the RV industry besides Airstream is trying to do that. So everything, if it's like, Jason's RV store, I can have anything I want to that's available.
Interesting. So Okay, one of the things that I got that I think is a good takeaway for anybody when you're valuing a business and looking at it, you said a number of things that I think are relevant, which is you need to know how to look at somebody's P&L, and you need to be able to understand whether they're being efficient there or not, and where the holes are, right? Where the areas for improvement are, or where the things are that are just going to be a problem. But you also talked about lines. And I think that's something that, and you are calling them floors in the RV space, right? But it's the line of credit that allows you to have purchasing power. Yep. And in different industries, there are different assets like that. It could be a line of credit. If you're doing bars and restaurants, it could be a liquor license that passes on, or in real estate, it could be zoning, right? But those are the things that, if you're not up to speed on it, are easy to overlook when you're looking at acquisitions. So I think that's a good takeaway for people.
For sure. It's those details that matter that you don't really know that you could literally buy. I mean, we bought the dealership before we even knew about the flooring line. So we essentially paid the guy, bought everything, changed everything in our name, and the flooring line was like, shut it down. And we were like, wait, what? And so luckily, we had money, but we had to put $1 million in an ILOC for 365 days, just sitting there, couldn't do anything. It was not allowed to bear interest. It just had to sit there in an ILOC doing nothing. And so, we were like begging on our knees, like, please let us do this. And they were like, no, you have no history. We don't care how much money you're worth. It doesn't matter how much cash you have. Like, we don't care. And I'm like, this is crazy. We're thinking that even my dad's balance sheet, I had a little bit of money, and like what the heck? And they just don't, they don't care, which, the banking industry is that. And so it's those minor details that are like, hey, so that's the first thing when we go buy a dealership is you kind of have to ask permission from the flooring company. Can I do this? And if they say yes or they say no, then you either yes or no.
That's a super interesting dynamic of the RV space.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's complicated, man.
Yeah. Well, I think lots of industries have nuance. Inside of payments, we've got all sorts of bizarre, like Visa and MasterCard are the governing body. But then you've got sort of this next layer, which are the member banks that are members of the Visa MasterCard Association, and they kind of police all the rules, but then they have their own layer of rules. And similarly, you're looking for Beyond a Million is brought to you by Easy Pay Direct. If you're an entrepreneur and you are still using a product like Stripe or PayPal to accept payments, it is time to find out why the largest names in your industry would never consider doing that. Check out easypaydirect.com/BAM to find out more. Somebody to grant you permission for flooring, right? And the member banks, it's similar. They're all different. They all have different sets of rules, and you need to get one that's going to play nice with you, basically. But it's an interesting thing to think about. I had no idea that was the case inside of the RV world. Though, in fairness, I haven't spent a tremendous amount of time talking about or thinking about the RV space until recently.
That's funny. Yeah, it's relatively unknown until I talk about it to you. Now you're going to go down the freeway and be like, oh, look, an RV, an RV, an RV, an RV.
Well, I've definitely thought about RVs because similar through COVID, it became more prevalent to see people journeying out amongst the country in their own little dedicated space, right? And obviously RVs have existed forever, but that became a way out, I think, at some point. Right. Has that continued post-COVID?
No, it's actually, what comes up must come down. And this is where, I'm going to own some truth. Everything I kind of just talked about sounds great and sounds peachy and all that stuff. But the fact is, we made some mistakes, and we kind of let ourselves, the eye off the prize a little bit. And I was, I only knew what I knew, and I was very new to the RV industry. And, it was really hard in 18, really hard in 19. All of a sudden it got super easy in 2021 and then in kind of a little bit of 22. And so what I did is, took my eye off of really how you generate that revenue, which I really was never super familiar with. I got the businesses and started building these businesses when the revenue and the demand was just there. Boom, boom, boom. Like, we couldn't screw it up. Like, I was doing so much and we were making so much money. Our problem was we didn't know what to do with it. So we're trying to figure out tax things, like what's going on. And I'm more worried about the support of the company. When it shifted in the middle of March of 2022, to put it in perspective, I made $1.5 million net profit in March. I made $70,000 net profit in April. It flipped in like 1 month, right? And then it's been trending down ever since. And so, not understanding how that part works has kind of is hurt the company. We've sold some stores trying to capitalize the company a little bit. We're going to sell more stores to recap. We grew and now we're shrinking back to really focus on making sure those processes are right, because I've learned a lot in the last while, but really in the last like month. It's kind of crazy we're having this podcast. Really in the last month, my whole entire vision of everything has changed substantially, because I've got the opportunity to go hang out with some people with some big dealerships and go look at their stores and how they operate, how they like. It's just, we're not even playing the same game. And so we've decided to shrink back down, recapitalize the company, get the health of the company going, and work on a lot of these processes that I was just not super familiar with. That I was never a sales guy in a dealership. I didn't know how the marketing worked. I didn't even know how the sales process worked. I didn't know how you get desk a deal, which they call like when you're doing the Foursquare and all that stuff. Like I did not know how any of that worked. And this guy that I was kind of been mentoring me is like, you're the biggest. He literally called me the biggest idiot I've ever. Like, he's like, I can't believe you do that. You have no business being in the RV industry. Like, but I needed that. And it was kind of like a, whoa, like I think that I'm killing it, but it's been that COVID facade and that COVID blanket. And then the industry is tanking. And I'm sitting here thinking support. Like, we got to figure out how to save our way to $1 million. And the guy's like, you need to go create the revenue. Like, I'm killing it. You lost money last year. I made $40 million. Like, you did like what, like you need to understand how to do this. And so we're repositioning the company to be able to do that, because the industry's come back down. But I only know what I know. But it's an ugly truth right now. And so, but it's going to be a wild ride. Like I was telling everybody, my team, like, if we pull this off, we're going to go down in the history books for the most amazing freaking thing in the world. But I know that we're going to pull it off, because I got some people in my corner, that are big, helping. Andy Elliott. I don't know if you know Andy Elliott. I'm wearing his little wristbands right here, but he basically is coming into our company and changing our whole entire sales process and doing a bunch of stuff for us. And that's just from, honestly, a lucky night. I went to dinner and he was there, which is kind of nuts. But we're really focusing on getting that revenue back up and gaining that market share, because the RV industry is in a tight spot right now. You're going to see a lot of stores start going out of business.
I love hearing that. Not because I love hearing about your struggle and decline in that, or recapitalization, but because people need to hear it. There's specifically the missteps and the learning lessons are the things that other entrepreneurs need to hear and rarely get to, because most of the time what gets posted, what gets shared, and even what gets asked is all the good stuff, right? Even when you're socially talking, it's like, hey, what's going on? Or, hey, what's good in your life right now? Or you're looking for those, and people aren't opening the door to the huge learning lessons, which is what we all need.
Right.
Let's start with, $1 million plus in net, $1.5 million in net in February to 70 grand in April. Was this an interest rate change? What was the significant shift that caused that?
Yeah. So, you had a combination of demand going down, interest rates going up. My flooring line, I have 50. Well, right now I don't have 50 million, but I had 55 million in inventory, and I'm paying 12% interest on that inventory. To put it in perspective, 12 months prior to that, it was 3.25%. And so my interest just shot through the roof, and demand was so then you have this kind of cross of the interest and the expense of everything is going crazy. And then inflation's going crazy, and we have the demand is just going down. And so the margin's shrinking. We're making, 20% on the trailers margin wise. Now we're making like 1% and 2%, which doesn't even pay the bills. And so it just shot like that demand in April was nothing. Like, it just shut off. It was like you had a fire hose in March, and we're high-fiving thinking that this is, because historically our season peaks in June. The end of June, you're coming back down on that down slope. And so March was amazing. We're making $1 million, 7 net and all these different things. And we're high-fiving and like, guys, we're going to crush it. And then we're thinking we're getting ready for June, right? Like, oh man, what is June going to look like? And so we had inventory flowing in, because you have to pre-buy it all. And so we kind of game the system of how, all the inventory flows in and all that, which is really extremely complicated. And we use analysts and computer programs to try to figure it out, and we never get it right. But, all that came in March. You have February, March, April, May, June is when our inventory kind of comes in. and then we shut it off and we kind of sell out of it for the, we go in the winter here in Utah. And so we're thinking, hey, this is going to be awesome. We might need to order a little bit extra. And so we're trying to figure out what to do. But what happened was, because of COVID, we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trailers sitting in Indiana that had not shipped yet, because they're sitting in holding yards because there's a big like freight, issue with, they can't find drivers. Well, you can't shut that off now because we're buying them. We got interest on them. So all those units started to trickle in. And so now we have this swollen inventory, and, and now the demand is gone. And so now it's just decreasing and decreasing and decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. And I'm thinking, hey, maybe this is a fluke. It's just a bad month. What's going to happen in May? Like, we're going to have a good summer. And it never really came back. I mean, it came back maybe a few $100,000 in net, but it never really came back to like, we were making over $1 million a month, in the years prior, which, that's awesome. But we gave it all back to the economy in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So I didn't think about, I thought about the demand side of it relative to interest, meaning that if most people are financing RVs, which I imagine they are, right? Yep. RVs are expensive. As interest rates went up, people's capacity to buy just went down. So demand went down as a result. But I didn't think about the other side of that, which is your line went from 3% to 12%, which is horrific. I mean, that's a wild difference. Yeah, that's brutal. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's nuts. And we did have that aspect of where, people can only afford what they can afford, right? But inflation made these trailers go up, like in most cases, 50% increases in prices. So that guy that's trying to buy that $20,000 brand new trailer, that doesn't exist in the RV industry anymore at all. And I used to buy these 26-foot bunkhouses in COVID, because I remember the day that I bought them, they were $14,000 landed on my lot, a 26-foot bunkhouse with a slide. Like, that's a solid trailer for a family. I used to buy $14,110. I'll never forget the number, because I bought 150 of them at one time in COVID, and we sold them in a month. Like that, the demand was insane. But now that trailer I'm buying from the manufacturer for $26,000. So I have to mark it up to 20, mid, low 30s to even make a little bit of money on it. And so that $20,000 buyer is gone, and that's a major portion of the market. And so, like, it was just a massive, interest rates went up on my inventory, interest rates went up on the consumers, the prices went up on the trailer. So then there's no market share left for any of these buyers that could afford those payments. And it was kind of I wouldn't say it was a Chernobyl thing, but it was definitely a recipe for what is going on right now.
So who buys the RV dealerships at this point, and how have the numbers shifted on exit? So like, when you're looking to acquire them, you're looking at 2 to 3 times earnings, except you see the upsides. You are buying them at maybe 1.5, but really the seller thinks it's 2 to 3 times earnings. When you're selling them now, what do the numbers look like? Sorry to dig a knife in the wound here, but but I think it's important to look at it.
Luckily, our Missouri stores, we sold for basically, we're not going to get all of our money back out, but we basically sold them for all that we paid for them. And that was just because the guy saw the value in it, and we're selling the value, and we got good brokers, and the financials didn't speak to that. But, it had good lines, and, they saw the value in that. But we're good. We're financing now on the other side a portion. We're carrying that contract, so we're going to get paid over the next 5 years. They put like $800,000 down, and then they're going to finance the $2 million on the other. Or we finance the $2 million on the other side. We're actually selling right now some stores to Camping World. Marcus Lemonis is buying our stores in Oregon, and they basically didn't even look at our financials because they knew we were losing money, and just offered a lump sum for everything, and we took it. And we're going to take a haircut, pretty gnarly haircut, but we're stopping the bleeding and the hemorrhaging and all that stuff. And we're going to end up coming out pretty clean. We've made a lot of money on the ride, and we're going to come out breaking even. So I look at it like, well, we put the money into it, made a lot of money. We're going to, we've done a lot of cool things with the money, and then now we're going to sell it. And then it's looking like it's going to, we're going to be able to close it down the right way and not have to do anything crazy. We're just going to, shut everything down and have a little bit of money left over for that. So that's unfortunate. But my Utah stores, we're trying to just protect the mothership, protect home. In hindsight, I wish I would have never grown. I should have put all that money and that time and that resource in bumping our current stores up, improving the facilities, improving the processes, making sure we have everything dialed in more. Instead of going and chasing revenue, I should have built the revenue. That is 100% my mistake. I wish that I would have, had more experience. I don't know what I can blame it on besides myself, and I just didn't know what I was doing. But right now I'm confident that I can make my stores here in Utah back up to $100 million. I wouldn't say relatively easily, but if I focus and hyper focus on anything I put my mind to, I know that I can do it. And I'm taking the reins of everything back over because I've hired some people as we've grown that I don't feel like have done the best jobs. And so now I'm making some changes and I'm taking a lot of it back over. And just in the last month, we've flipped everything upside down and we're selling units right now. And we're going to make this puppy profitable. And, we're going to make some things happen. But I've had to have a little bit of a come to Jesus meeting with myself and realize, hey, I don't know what I don't know. And I'm going to surround myself with the best people. But at the end of the day, I'm going to make this happen, whether people like it or not. But I have to protect, our investment, my investment, and I want this to keep going. So you have to expand with the market. You contract with the market, and that's been the hardest thing for me is contracting too late. I wish that I would have done some of these repositioning and honestly, I hate to say it, but some layoffs and some riding the ship for the current market and the current revenue, right? Like the stores were appropriate for COVID revenue of, we were just didn't even know what to do with ourselves. And now when the market's kind of peeled back, it's like, hey, well, we can't bet on the comp. Like we have no idea. We have to just make sure we're taking care of that now. And I have some calculations and some formulations through of how I calculate how many employees we can have per store. And I'm like, how did I let this go? I'm beating myself against the wall every day. And like, how did I not pay attention to the details? And so everybody I'm talking to now, I'm like, pay attention. Like, are you looking at everything? Like, I should have been more in the numbers and more into the dealerships than trying to sit in an office at corporate, trying to game everything and figure out how to support it and save and this and that and the other. I should have been in the trenches and I would have found this out 9 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. I didn't, and it's cost us millions, but I'm going to flip this baby around and it's going to be fun.
So what I think I heard was you've got there's this gap between working in the business versus working on the business. And ultimately scale comes from working on the business, not in it. But the mistake you made was not having a thorough enough understanding of the practices in the business to be able to work on it above.
100%. That's a great way to put it, because it would have been a lot easier to work on the business if I would have known what the business is supposed to look like. So I'm thinking this picture that I built is what the business is supposed to look like. And then now I'm being, through all these different mentors, now going like, I've been on a mission to be the best. And so now going and talking to the Andy Elliott's and figuring out their sales, how they do sales and their sales process. I'm like, okay, like doesn't even look anything like ours. And then going to this other guy's dealership, and I mean, he's got 37 salespeople. They're selling 300 or 255 trailers a month out of their one store. It's bigger than my entire group. I'm like, okay, like we're not even playing the same game. So I don't even know what I'm managing. Like what have I been doing the last 2 years? I have no idea. And so like that's been really, really hard. Is I've worked so hard to create this this business that just was a great business. And like the guy even told me, he's like, dude, you're a lot better at running a business than I like, and he's doing 600 million in sales. He's like, you're way better at running a business than I am. But what I'm in is I'm really good at selling, creating that revenue, and then just, I'm good at that. And so we've even talked about, some sort of merger here and there, which, we'll see what happens. But he's like, I would love the way you do your processes, because I know that you would make me more profitable, but I'd help you create the revenue, and then it would be rising tide raises all ships. And I'm like, and he's like, but first you got to take care of how you make your money, and you got to get the revenue, you got to know the processes, you got to be in the trenches every single day. And, for a long time, like he's got 17 years on me in the business. I thought I was so good at it after 2 years. I'm like, let's go buy more stores. And he's like, what are you doing? So there's been a really big, kind of a little bit of a come to Jesus learning curve for me. But I mean, I've been actually super grateful for it because I'm glad this happened early on in my career. I almost spent 20 million bucks back in January on 6 more stores in Colorado. I'm so grateful I didn't do that because I couldn't handle that. And now shrinking everything back, like making sure that the people that we put in place for the future growth is the right positions and they're in the right seats and it's the right people doing it, because I made some mistakes with thinking people were in the seats for, the could handle the situation. Like I had a CFO that should never been a CFO no matter, and that's cost us million, like we just cost us a lot of problems. And so there's a lot of those different things that I'm like, hey, like now my understanding of business is, I've been at the expense of losing a lot of money, but I have learned an incredible amount of, business knowledge and how to deal with it sounds kind of sick, but I'm having the most fun right now I have had in the last 5 years in probably the worst time of the last 5 years.
It sounds like leadership. It sounds like, an entrepreneur that is in tune with the reality that it starts and ends with us. And if we don't own it, we don't get anywhere.
Right.
So I appreciate the ownership and self-awareness. I mean, I think that's at the core of anybody that's going to do anything great. And you can tell very quickly when people don't have self-awareness. It happens throughout every space in life. But, I think you, as with most entrepreneurs, the sample set that we get to see it in most commonly are staff, our employees. Right? You can see who's actually owning the outcome on your team and who's not, right? Who knows that it's ultimately on them versus placing the blame on somebody else.
Right.
You mentioned systems and sales not being one that you had dialed, but you mentioned this other figure that did 600 million in revenue, big RV boss, that admired other systems you had in place or operational mindset. What are the systems that you feel like you dialed? What are the systems that you have that allowed you to run a $100 million RV company? What are the ones that were working well and or are working well?
It kind of sounds silly, but a lot of it has to do with our culture and the way we deal with people and the leadership side to our company. We have book clubs. We make managers read books. I speak on culture all the time. We're a value-driven company. We have a mission. We're here for the same reasons. One of our values is family. I mean, we are running in the same direction, aligning everybody to what the goal is. We've done really, really good at that. We've done really, really good at, if you want to get technical with the dealerships, really good at service. My fixed operations guy is phenomenal at service. He's a master certified technician, been in a dealership 25 years. And so he really understands service. And one thing that we've done really, really unique that this individual likes, which we're the only one that I know of outside of the actual RVTI, which is the RV Technical Institute. I am an accredited training facility. I can actually master certify my own technicians and I can proctor my own tests and do all these different. So I have a training facility in Salt Lake City with mock trailers and different systems. And I got refrigerators and AC systems and all these different things like that I can actually fully certify my technicians. And so one thing we've done really well is that every single technician that works for us is at least level 1 certified. I make all my service writers get level 1 certified and all my general managers get level 1 certified and all my service managers get level 1 certified, which there's no other company in the history of the RV industry that can say that. And so, because service is super, super important in the RV industry. It's very difficult. We don't make any money. In the automotive industry, the service department they're 100% absorption, which means they make 100%, they cover 100% of the cost of running a dealership and service. Generally in the car business. If it's a new car dealership, that's 100% absorption. In the RV industry, it's a big expense. There's no absorption. It's a massive expense, but you gotta basically you're just trying not to lose a ton of money. You're gonna lose money, but you're trying not to lose a ton of money. And so we've been able to do a really good job at that. And actually a couple times we've hit 100% absorption, which is wild. And so, we've done really, really good on the fixed operations as well as the systems we have in place in finance. But a lot of it comes to just our culture, leadership, building the the business side to it, the people side to it, the right butts in the right seats. But then, it's kind of funny that I'm saying this while at the same time saying like, whoa, I don't think that we really know what we're doing in sales. But I can't really blame my people for that because I have never shown them the way. But I will say in the last month, specifically in the last 2.5 weeks with Andy Elliott and the Elliott Group, we flipped upside down, and we're actually, this is going to be one of the best months we've had all year. I'm putting it out there because we're grinding, we're doing everything we need to do, we're selling the units, we're delivering the units, and we're going to get down and dirty and have some fun. And we're going back to war. And I'm in the dealerships every single day. I'm making the phone calls to the customer. I'm having a good time. Like I'm having a lot of fun. And so, yeah, not that that's a system, but we're getting back to our roots and how we do things.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be a system yet, but I really believe that the fastest path to getting good systems in place is to have an environment where you're enjoying the process. If you're not enjoying the process and you're just fucking pushing a boulder up a hill all day, dude, it's just going to take you longer to execute it than if you like the process and you're being pulled through it.
Right.
That's my belief in general. And by the way, that doesn't mean that I enjoy every day. It doesn't mean that I'm not pushing a fucking boulder up the hill all the time, right? Because I will grind it out. But if I can figure out a path where I'm enjoying it, I'm going to do better. I don't do it enough, but I'm going to do better.
100%. And I think it's like we, getting back, we've been in, I mean, obviously this summer's been tough, right? But it's been better for my mindset being closer to the problems and closer to the people and closer to everything, and having like the confidence that'd be like, oh, we actually can get through that. Like, okay, like now I know the problems. Like I'm very like before, I'm trying to game all these regional people and these presidents, COO, and all these different people, and like they're relaying the information to me, and I'm trying to coach them and trying to figure it out. But now I'm like, hey, get out of my way. I'm going in, and I'm like, wow, I know my path forward now. Before it's like, are we going to make it? Are we not going to make it? Every single day, I don't really know. What are the problems? So now I spent the last, like even like on a few dealerships this last weekend. I mean, even my wife helped me, and I was like, I put everything up on the big screen TV and, in our living room, and I'm having these spreadsheets, and she's calling out numbers for me, and I'm like, that's our problem. So just in the last couple of days, I'm going on a tour to all the dealerships saying, here's our major problem we have. And it happens to be in the used inventory section of everything. Like this is a major problem. So like now I'm fixing those, but it's from bad, it's from me telling someone else and playing the telephone game that never got, really relayed 100%, which, that's on me. And again, I can't believe, like some people listen to this, be like, oh yeah, like you're an idiot. I can't believe you didn't, see that. But I'm trying to run 9 dealerships in 3 different states from, Missouri, Utah, and Oregon, trying to game plan like all these different things. I got a lot of money. It's like my mind was not there, but now being able to shed everything and all that craziness of the travel and all that stuff with going all these other states and just focus on Utah, still focusing on Oregon because we don't close with Marcus until first week of October, but it's like, it's changed the game. And like, now everybody's bummed. They're like, well, now in Oregon, like they're killing it. Like they're making money. Like now everybody's like, man, I wish we weren't getting sold. I'm like, I can't back out now, but yeah, we probably could have kept you guys and been okay. But it's a big learning experience, and it's been cool because now, like I've created this relationship with a lot of my stores that they've never gotten, even some of them never got to meet me because they never really visited the stores. And so now it's like everybody just seems like they're putting in that much more effort and just, doing their thing. And it's going to be fun to watch what we do.
Well, let's talk about culture for a minute, because you attribute that to being at the core of things running smoothly, or the operational systems that are running smoothly that you're enjoying. How much is nature versus nurture? How much do you rely on hiring the right people to build the culture versus the things that you do inside the company?
That's a great question. It's important. So what I try to do is I really try to get to know people before I ever hire them, really as people, because I can't really teach people the intangible things, what I call the intangible things of like how to treat people, be nice, tones, like yelling, like how they really are as like a wired person. Now, I have a lot of like personality tests and management style tests that we have created over time with some of my mentors in the form of, Dr. Michael O'Connor and Lee Quinn and David Spader. but which are, 46 to 50 page reports on energy and personalities and all kinds of cool stuff. So I really try to do that before I ever hire them, to really know where they are. And you'd be surprised how many people I can see their energy index when they take these, if they're naturally positive, naturally negative, in favorable situations and unfavorable situations. It all pulls out on the report. It's pretty interesting, so that I can kind of know who I'm interviewing, who I'm hiring, and different things like that. But so I really find that, but then making sure that they really fit the role is very, very important. But then setting them up for success and teaching them, like you call it, nurture them and teaching them, how to do things. But we have the saying of either coach them up or coach them out. So you got to coach them up, make sure that they're doing something. Then you got to either, kind of coach them out. We either find someone else somewhere in the company, or we redeploy them out in the workforce because it's just not working. And so we have to make sure that historically we've done a really bad job at that. We've identified issues, we've identified personality issues. Maybe it's a lack of capabilities or motivation, whatever you want to call it. But quite often it's a capability or issue. And like, hey, this person's just not cutting it. Like, maybe they're in the accounting office and then like they just really don't know anything about accounting. Like, we really need some all-stars in these certain places. And then that's all, I'll say is, from experience, I used to think that a lot of like work experience didn't matter, or maybe even some degrees didn't matter. But trust me, if I say a degree or experience matters, an accounting degree, or having someone that can control your money. Like my new CFO is a CPA, and he was an auditor for 12 years for Deloitte, a big auditing firm. And he was a senior partner. Like he was, he's dialed in. He still has a CPA license. Like that has changed the game for us. So I will say that. But making sure that they, in different positions and constantly scoring them. We have a score system of L1 through L5. L1 is very focused managed. They're brand new. L5 is basically you're a cheerleader. They know what they're doing. And so we're constantly scoring our teams to make sure where they're at in their job description, or how we view what they should be doing in their job. Again, it kind of sounds silly because of sales, but at the end of the day, I was scoring them what I thought was right. Now I'm like, wow, like we are not even, we're all kind of L2s and L3s in the form of sales, which we're going to get ourselves the L4s and L5s. But just knowing what that playbook is, about your people is very, very important, because you got to know, who your team is and how they're operating and what they're good at, what they're bad at, how their personality is, their management style, how they like to be managed, how they like to manage other people. We work it through the system.
Can you, not sales, but can you give me one role and tell me what the criteria is for that rating system of L1 to L5?
I'll just accounting offices. My accounting office has got to be L5s. I don't need to babysit them. I can't go through every invoice. I mean, I looked the other day, just in one.
Like, what are the specific criteria that makes somebody an L5 versus an L1 or an L3?
So basically, most people, like you're working your way up the ladder. An L5 would mean that they're doing everything on time. Their month end is good. They don't need babysitting. They don't need hand holding. Everything is dialed in, which in the art, we have certain month end closing processes, whether it's, either an AP clerk, an AR clerk, a titling clerk, or maybe your office manager. We have different kind of job descriptions and what those look like. But you say your AP, making sure all your AP is, someone's got to rec the bank every day. Or do the bank rec every single day, make sure that's dialed in, make sure our cash, we know what our cash is. That's by a certain time. My CFO requires it at 10 a.m. every single day. So we can make it, we know where our cash is every single day. You got to make sure that AP is dialed in. We got to make sure that AR is dialed in. Like, we have a certain process where things aren't getting old. If they're scoring good on all that, I would say that they're an L5. And I tell them, hey, you're an L5. We're going to start managing like an L5. But if things start slipping, we're going to go back. And then if we keep going back and forth all the time, then we're going to have a different conversation, because it's not working out. Like, you can't keep sliding backwards. And so, for someone to say that L5, they're getting everything done perfectly on time. If they're going sliding down the scale, it's okay. In an L1, you're going to focus manage, and maybe they jump super quick because they have experience, right? So we're going, okay, well, you don't really need me every single day. Maybe an L2 is more check-in points, maybe a couple times a day. Maybe in L3, we're kind of figuring out that's like that transition point of whether they're going to work or not going to work. So if they advance to an L4, then okay, we're going to keep progressing. But if they're kind of teeter-tottering on L2 and L3, then we're probably going to make a position change because it's just not working out. They're not progressing up the ladder. And so really the L3 is that pivotal point of going back and forth. And then the L4s and fives, like I said, you're more of a cheerleader, but it just goes, we have job descriptions and KPIs and, of what key performance indicators of how they should be performing. And I have actually time management stipulations of what their bulk of their time every single day needs to be broken out in percentages of what they should be doing every single day. So we kind of, it's a lot. Like, I don't know if that's what you're asking, but it's a lot that goes into it, but we really just kind of make a coaching play decision and then figure out what we're doing. And then if we're having issues in the department, we go really focus in the department, figure out, is it a motivations thing? Is it a capabilities thing? If we set them up for success with the right KPIs, what's going on? Like, we really try to figure out the situation that's what's happening with that. And, it could be, managers and managing them right. And then we look at the leadership, like there's a lot that goes into it. That happens pretty quickly though. It's not, we don't investigate for months. We, it takes a couple of days and we can generally figure out what we got going on.
And how are you tracking those things?
I have forms. Yep. So I have forms for everything. I got spreadsheets and forms and different things of what their KPIs. I mean, I literally give it to them of, okay, this is what a office manager is supposed to do in your time management, all these different things. And, making sure that they have it and I have it. And then you can kind of tell, if they're not getting the bank rec done by a certain time, it's like, hey, what's going on? What are you spending your time on during the morning that you can't get this done? Because you should be able to get this done. So obviously you're not following the KPIs and what the time management we have for you, like, what's up? So we really have those dialed in, and my CFO is constantly having those meetings specifically, with the offices.
Got it. Awesome. So ultimately, a lot of what I heard was when you're looking for people, personality, character, values are at the core of it. And then you've got pretty defined roles, responsibilities, KPIs to measure. And that's sort of the general management framework or hiring and growth framework.
It seems probably sounds and seems more complicated than it is. And I don't think it is, but I think that, like you said before, like the values, really the values is the foundation of a person, I believe. Like like a lot of personality tests out there. Like I use DISC, fully certified in DISC. I've probably spent $500,000 getting certified in DISC and reading every book in the world, tens of thousands of pages on it and psychology behind it and all that good stuff. And, a lot of DISC personality tests out there will say, well, if you're a dominant director or a D personality, then you're this way and that's the only way you can be. Well, I would argue that what if the person has family values and that he would put his family before anybody else? Well, that's not technically the definition of a dominant director personality, right? And so it really lays back on your values and foundation and really your circumstances of everything that's happened in your life. You can be, a dominant director, but why? In favorable situations and unfavorable situations. Like in unfavorable situations, I'm a dominant. I go into dominant, like fight or die. Let's find the answer. Like boom, 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 boom. In favorable situations, I'm an interacting socializer. So life is a party and we're going to have a good time. But I need to know that. And I actually have everybody in my team take these tests and I plot map my team's test or, plot map us on the DISC quadrant. And so I always say, hey, this is an unfavorable situation. We're probably going to react this way. Is that the best way to react? I mean, but like once it's easy to say, hey, that's probably not the best way to react because we're all kind of that dominant personality in unfavorable situations. And that means we're probably like, you want to just go punch someone in the face. And, if I have to get through this wall, we're just going to bust through the wall and make it happen. That's probably, then we figure out what the situation needs and we game plan it more that way. Instead of reacting, we're responding to the situation. And so I get really, that, like I said, personality is really how you maybe portray your values, but there's always a deeper meaning behind all of that stuff, which, I will never pigeonhole someone. Like I will never say like, hey, like this position requires this personality because there's just so much that goes into it and you'd be surprised. A lot of people enroll. So I call it enroll because, I believe there's three personalities, your natural personality, and your personality in role of unfavorable situations and in favorable situations. So, it's a really long topic, but I look at all that stuff because I like to see why people do what they do and how they're going to operate and how they're going to fit in our system and what motivates them.
I love it, man. Well, I know we're coming up on time here. I appreciate the transparency and talking through kind of the ups and downs and the lessons through it. Super valuable for other people to hear, myself included. I guess the before we close, what do you think there are? And I've been thinking about this since we scheduled. What lessons or what practices from the network marketing world are still existing and running in the RV company, if any?
I would say the leader, it was a couple things. So like we do like incentive programs kind of based a lot on network marketing because I think it's awesome. So they do a lot of incentives and different things for people to chase goals. But I would say the biggest thing is the self-development side. To what I've seen, when you're building these teams, especially in the network marketing side, you have no idea who you're dealing with on the other side of that, maybe Zoom call or phone call, or even if you're going in someone's living room to present the opportunity, and maybe they see a dream, in that, and like giving someone a dream. Like it sounds silly because we got, RV dealerships, but I'm trying to help them fulfill their dream, which is kind of crazy. But I identify those dreams and identify those goals with people. When I used to sit down with my leaders in network marketing, I used to ask their goals and their dreams and what do you want in your 1 year, 5 year, 10 year. Like what I ask those same to my employees. I need to know if I'm a stepping stone. Are you going to be, are you working for me for a summer job because you're going to college? Then I need to know because I'm going to help you make the most money and have the most fun in college. Like I'm going to own that stepping stone. I'm okay with that because we're going to be aligned and we're on the same page. And you picked me to be a stepping stone. I take kind of pride and honor in that you want to work for a company for the summer and we're going to work through that. But a lot of that leadership side to the network marketing side through, like I said, incentives, but then like getting those dreams and goals out of people, but then also seeing people change. Our stores are relatively rural. We got them, like I said, 100 miles out of Salt Lake City, and we got one, pretty much in Salt Lake City. But I've seen people change. I've seen people, reading books that never would read books. I've seen people want to be a leader and be like, hey, I never thought that I could ever be anything but maybe, the lowest level of, like, I want to be more. I have a dream. I have a goal. Like I want to progress. And but a lot of that is going to be through what I believe in self-development and getting those attributes kind of in line. So I've taken a lot of that. I always joke like network marketing. I always say like as a self-development company with a comp plan and some products. Right? Like that's what I've always felt like. And I'm trying to bring that into, but I also feel like, maybe I took it to not that I took it too much of an extreme, but it's like you're playing the game of like, you have all this leadership and all these books, but then you need to get results. So like, I always tell guys like, hey, I'm basing this is not a citizenship grade. I appreciate, the leadership and the books and everything that everybody's doing, but like we need results. So if we're getting both in the same, that's great. But if all you're doing is saying how many books you're reading and then I get no results on the other side, like you're not, like this is not a citizenship thing. But I appreciate like it's and like that sounds weird and maybe someone else has some advice for me, but it's like I kind of got caught in this culture thing where everybody's like, oh, like I'm reading all these books. I'm like, yeah, but like we are in the business of selling trailers. So if you're just sitting there like not wanting to do anything and progress selling trailers and like help yourself, then I don't really know what to do with you. You're just kind of, I don't know what to do. Yeah. So it's been kind of a learning curve for me in that sense. Sorry, I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's just.
Yeah, sure. There are, it definitely is. And there are a lot of very, very smart academics that are totally broke and
right.
that don't know the practical application of things, that are studied up on theory, but don't know where the rubber meets the road. So
right.
You can read as much as you want, but you don't internalize and you don't really learn unless you apply. So I like the frame of there has to be an outcome tied to it.
Yeah. I mean, Uncle G always says you got to take that massive action and be obsessed or be average, right? I mean, you can, you got to be obsessed, but then you got to take that, like I want people to be obsessed on the results of what we're getting, not just be obsessed on, something that doesn't produce results. So, but you have to actually, apply those, have the vehicle, be able to do that. But then you got to get the results. It's not just, oh yeah, I'm going to sit here. Like people are like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and believe it. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to take that massive action I always like, the more action you take, a massive action, the universe will start giving you, it attracts that energy. Right. So you got to take that action, got to get out there and do it. And it's crazy. Like in the last 3 weeks, I feel like I've done more than I have in probably the last 2 years. And I've had the most fun. I feel like I have the best relationship with my wife ever because because my energy is high. Like how I feel my energy back up as people and like all these. So it's just been a crazy learning experience in the last 3 weeks of kind of practicing what I've been preaching for the last 5 years.
Jason Haugen, I appreciate you carving out time and digging in. Where do you want to point people if they want to find out more about you or your business or your podcast, whatever?
So Instagram, so just Jason Haugen, and that is Haugen. So Jason Haugen on Instagram. My podcast is called Culture Camp, where I interview a bunch of entrepreneurs, CEOs, athletes, all kinds of people. I also got some solo episodes. We talk about all things culture. And then I got a website called IamJasonHaugen.com.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Until next time. Love it. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed doing it. I need your help. There are 3 places you can find Beyond a Million. The podcast itself, beyondamillion.com, which has some cool free resources, including a free course. And we finally launched the Beyond a Million YouTube channel. I would love it if you would go there and subscribe. And if you don't want to, you still would probably enjoy seeing the visual content. Check it out, youtube.com/@Beyond a Million.